This weekend started like any other Saturday. Tom slept in a bit longer than usual, and after waking up, gave his wife of 17 years, Rachel, a quick morning kiss. She grumbled, "Tom, let me sleep. I can't catch a break with you. Not at night or in the morning. And the girls are probably awake by now." Tom replied, "You're right, they're grown-ups. They won't barge into our bedroom. Let me sleep." He got up, slipped into a robe, and headed for the shower. As he passed by Emma's room, he heard some noise and commotion. It sounded like Sophia was pulling Emma out of bed. Deciding to leave them to it, Tom went on with his morning routine. After freshening up, he dressed and headed to the kitchen. His daughters, clearly tired of waiting, were already sitting at the table. Emma asked, "Are we having breakfast today? Are you hungry?" "You still have to go to school," Tom responded. "Why?" Emma asked. "I don't know. You girls are on New Year's vacation." "You're going to Grandma's," Tom answered. Emma furrowed her brow and asked, "And you? Aren't you on vacation too? You have a long weekend." Tom glanced at Rachel, who was already deciding the day's agenda. "It's all Rachel's decision. You can make your own breakfast," he suggested, smiling. Sophia quickly chimed in, "We could, but Mom won't let us. She thinks we'd burn everything and ruin the pans. All she knows how to make is scrambled eggs." "Do you want oatmeal or semolina porridge like they have in England?" Tom asked. "Oatmeal, please, sir," Emma said, grinning. Tom smiled back. "Or in this case, oatmeal, miss." "Fine. We'll leave the oats for the horses," he joked. "Make the semolina without lumps." "Done and done. Now go wash your face and brush your teeth. The porridge will be ready in 15 minutes. Tom quickly prepared breakfast, and while he worked, Rachel left the bedroom and entered the bathroom. His daughters sat down to eat, and shortly after, Rachel returned, her hair neatly combed. Tom looked at his wife, still dressed in his shirt, and after all these years, she still managed to excite him. He could see her beauty, even if every man has his own idea of what makes a woman beautiful. He loved her, but he also felt a growing distance between them. Rachel sat down at the table and, with a serious expression, said, "Finish your meal and get ready slowly. Today, Dad will take you to your grandmother's." Emma protested, "Mom, you promised we'd go to the ski center for a week. We've already packed our ski gear, and we wanted to celebrate New Year's together." Rachel calmly responded, "Girls, in life, we don't always get what we want, but we'll definitely go to the ski center during spring break when there's no more snow. Or we could go to Palmer. I heard they have snow year-round in the mountains now. But finish up and get ready." Tom didn't like the idea of sending the kids to his mother-in-law's, especially after the deception about the trip they'd been planning. He could sense a shift in their relationship, one that seemed to coincide with the arrival of Richard, the new commercial director at Rachel's workplace. Tom knew Rachel had known Richard from university, but she hadn't mentioned him to him before. It made him uneasy, but he trusted that his wife would resist any temptation for an affair. He thought about meeting Richard, but feared it might only make things worse. Still, Tom kept a close watch on his wife. To his knowledge, nothing significant had happened between them, just a bit of light flirting. Rachel's decision to send the girls to her parents today, however, hinted that something important was about to unfold during the long New Year's weekend, and she would likely want to share it with him. Tom was ready for this conversation and kept a recorder on standby to ensure he understood everything she would say. As it all started, his tears dried, and his resolve grew stronger. He knew he had to protect his daughters, especially if Rachel was planning to tear their family apart. Tom was prepared for what was coming. What Rachel didn't know was that, before the conversation began, Tom had gone to the bathroom, washed his hands, and turned on the recorder, hiding it in his breast pocket. Then he returned to the kitchen and sat at the table. Rachel sat in silence for a minute, before looking at Tom with a brief smile that quickly faded. "There's something you and I need to talk about right now." Rachel's words were clear and left no doubt that Tom wouldn't like where this conversation was heading. He didn't let it get to him, though. He looked away from his food and asked, "Is something wrong?" Rachel replied, "Nothing's wrong. You know I love you. I've loved only you for years. You've been an incredible lover, husband, and father to our girls. I want to grow old with you, maybe even die on the same day." Tom's brow furrowed. "What's stopping us?" Rachel continued, I'm a trained sociologist from our university, but only a few of us actually work in that field. The ones who do study population surveys and data analysis to understand society, identify negative trends, and offer solutions. While I work in marketing and research, I still keep a close eye on sociological developments. Everything seems a bit unclear and complicated, Tom said. Can you give me the gist of your question? Rachel paused, then explained, I've read about the common reasons marriages struggle, and I want to reduce the chances of anything going wrong between us. We should be proactive to avoid the pitfalls that lead to failed marriages. Tom was puzzled. What could go wrong for us? Rachel's tone grew more serious. That's exactly what I want to figure out. How do we avoid it? Tom sighed. It seems like you've been reading a lot of convoluted theories from someone just trying to grab attention. I don't buy into these sociological conclusions at all. Can you just tell me what this nonsense is all about? Rachel snorted, clearly not backing down. Tom, I'm serious. I'm worried about our family. I'm concerned we might drift apart, and today's actions could push us further away. This could lead to the end of our relationship. So, tell me, what should we do? Tom was taken aback. I'm not a sociologist, but I can't see how this helps us. Maybe we should see a psychologist? Rachel hesitated, then said, I've been thinking about it for a while now, and I believe we need a break from our marriage. We need time to explore our own lives and experiences with other people and places. That way, when we come back together, we'll have a broader perspective to support our relationship. Tom's eyes widened. How long should this break last? A month? A year? Rachel looked at him calmly. No, I think a 2-week holiday weekend would be enough. Tom was stunned. Is that why the kids are going to your mom's instead of the ski resort? We could have sent them to my parents' place, but no. Your mom's place has already been planned. Rachel met his gaze. So, you're telling me that you and your lover concocted this whole sociological theory just to get my approval for a long weekend with your lover? Her words left Tom completely shaken. The boldness of Rachel's proposal shocked him, though, in a way, it wasn't entirely surprising considering his suspicions. Even so, it hurt deeply. Tom, still in disbelief, asked, Rachel, I'm still not sure what you're getting at. Can you clarify? I have no idea who you're talking about as a lover, Rachel said coldly. You may not like it, but you'll see. It won't change anything between us. I'll make sure you're happy when we reunite. Yes, it's selfish, but I have my reasons. I want to grow old with you. Maybe you don't understand that now, but you will. And you'll apologize for doubting me. Tom felt his stomach drop. You don't even know who I'm talking about, do you? Rachel looked at him, her expression firm. You're wrong. I do know. You're talking about David, the new commercial director at work. You had a passionate affair with him back in college, didn't you? And when he got bored of you, he ended it. After that, you quickly moved on to me. And yet, not a word was said to me about him becoming your boss. Tom was speechless, trying to process the weight of her words. And you're wrong about a lot of other things too, Rachel added, her tone sharp. What do you mean? Tom asked, his voice trembling. Rachel looked at him without blinking. You're wrong to think nothing will change. It already has. It's already changed. Your attitude towards me, towards our kids, it's all different now. Everything in this family is changing today. Tom felt like the ground was slipping from beneath him. Rachel, I love you, but I don't know what you're imagining. I still love you. Rachel's gaze softened for a moment, but she quickly recovered. I don't know how you'll explain our divorce to your parents, or to Emma and Sophia. What will they think? What will they think of their parents' divorce? Tom's heart sank. What are you talking about? We're not getting divorced, and our parents don't need to be involved in our personal affairs. Sociology isn't some magic formula, Rachel. You don't need to fit our situation into some theory you came up with. Rachel's voice grew stern. I see you're overcomplicating things, Tom. I'll give you time to think it through. But for now, you take the girls. When you get back, we'll sit down and talk it out. Tom stood up, unable to sit still any longer. We're not resolving anything. I'm leaving. Rachel's face twisted in disbelief. But you can't do this to me, Tom. I can and I will. Rachel snapped, her voice cold. I won't do what you suggested. My decision to divorce was spontaneous. I just decided it now. Tom's mind was racing, and he tried to hold his ground. But I said I was calling it off. You did, Rachel replied sharply. Then you said that when you got back, we'd sit down and talk about it. So, enjoy your long weekend off while I drive the girls around. You can consult with your David. Just then, Emma walked into the kitchen, breaking the tension. Daddy, we're ready to go. Tom glanced at his daughters. Okay, girls, I'll be ready in 5 minutes. He quickly dressed, grabbed his laptop, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and without saying goodbye to Rachel, headed downstairs. Outside, he started the car and let it warm up. The girls climbed into the back seat, and Tom drove off. Rachel watched them leave from the window, her confusion lingering. The car ride was quiet, the atmosphere tense. Finally, Emma spoke up. Daddy, Grandma lives on the other side of the road. Tom responded, keeping his tone neutral. I know, dear, but you were promised a ski lodge, and that's where we're going. We'll figure out where to stay. Sophia asked. Dad, are you and Mom getting a divorce? Tom glanced at his daughters in the rearview mirror. Why would you say that? We overheard you arguing in the kitchen, Emma said. I'm on your side, aren't you, Gwen? Sophia nodded. I'm on Dad's side too. But where are we going to live? We'll stay at my mom's house, Tom said, keeping his voice calm. I'll drop you off at school and pick up your things for now. Let's put all these worries aside and enjoy our vacation. You deserve it. Meanwhile, Rachel turned away from the window, her phone in hand. She dialed David, who answered almost immediately. David, it's Rachel. I've got a problem, she said, her voice strained. No worries, I'm alone. Has your husband left yet? David asked. He's leaving tonight. He just went to the store. He's probably on his way. What's going on? Rachel hesitated. He didn't react like we expected. He didn't believe me. Who are you referring to? David asked, his voice curious. My husband, Rachel said, pausing. I offered him the 2-week separation we talked about, but he didn't agree. David's voice turned serious. That's not good. It's going to cause a huge stir. It'll reach the office gossip mill, and eventually Maya will hear about it. Maya? Rachel sounded uncertain. I'm not interested in divorcing my husband. David scoffed. You've never been interested, have you? Rachel ignored his comment. So, what do I do now? Is your husband back already? No. He still has to drop the girls off at my parents' place, and then come back. I'm sure he'll come home. He's not leaving. Then tell him you've made your decision, and there's no temporary separation. We need to let his anger subside and keep this from reaching the workplace. If it gets out, it will complicate everything. Rachel nodded as she hung up the phone, feeling a little relief with David's support. She thought over the situation, remembering the old saying about a way to a man's heart. She decided to set the table to avoid the hassle of cooking. She got dressed, left the house, and went to a cafe, ordering takeout. She also grabbed a bottle of wine and a corkscrew, placing 2 glasses beside it. Back at home, she heated the appetizer she had bought in the microwave. Settling into an armchair in the living room, she turned on the TV, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She wondered whether her brief affair with an old flame was worth jeopardizing her family. Convincing Tom would be incredibly challenging, and she wasn't sure how much he knew about her relationship with David. She regretted telling Tom that her former classmate had become her boss. She knew that would be the trigger for everything. But it was true that Tom knew about her involvement with David, and he knew David had left her. What she hadn't expected was for David to suddenly reappear in her life when she learned he would be the new commercial director at her company. Rachel remembered how it felt when David came back into her life. She had realized it was just a fling, nothing serious. During their first one-on-one conversation, David had told her, Rachel, I've always liked you, but I can't risk ruining my family. I'm not ready to cut off contact, but we need to keep this very discreet. You're married too, after all. Rachel looked back on it all. Life had shown her the foolishness of her decisions, and now everything seemed on the verge of unraveling. Discussions in the study had suggested a scientific basis, but it seemed they had underestimated something important. For hours had passed, and Tom still hadn't returned. By now, he should have been back. Rachel called her mother's phone, and after a brief delay, her mom answered. Daughter, I'm here, her mom said. I just called to check on you. How's everything going? It's winter, and it gets dark so early now. We're sitting with Grandpa, having a bit of an argument, her mom continued. What's the argument about? Rachel asked. The usual, her mom replied. The old man wanted a drink, but I refused. He found the bottle I hid, though. And you? How are you doing? Rachel asked, trying to shift the conversation. I'm fine. Just wondering when you'll bring Emma and Sophia over for a visit. Rachel knew from her mom's words that Tom hadn't arrived yet. After the call, she dialed Tom's parents' number. It was Tom's father, a retired military officer, who answered. Rachel, is that you? He asked, his voice gruff. Be honest now. I know why you're calling. I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing, Rachel said. Don't try to deceive me, Tom's father snapped. You're looking for Tom and the girls, right? He warned us about this. Tom hasn't come to your place yet. He called and said you were getting a divorce. That's absurd, Rachel responded quickly. We had a misunderstanding, but we're not getting a divorce over something like that. Tom's father didn't sound convinced. I get it. This isn't just between you two. It's about some guy from your work, isn't it? What did he say? Rachel asked, trying to control her tone. He told me this morning at breakfast that you proposed a 2-week separation, Tom's father said. When he didn't agree, you said you'd cancel it but discuss it when he got back. Is that right? No, Rachel said, her voice tight. Tom said he's had enough of discussions, and he's decided on a divorce. He's going to sort it out and won't be back. He assumed you were still at home waiting for him. Well, he's wrong. He didn't tell us where he was going, Tom's father replied. We were so upset that we didn't even ask. Rachel sighed. If he calls, tell him he misunderstood everything. I tried my best for our family, but now I see I've made a mistake. I don't know my own daughter anymore. We've been together for so long, and even in the toughest times, we never thought about separating. Who put these ridiculous ideas in your head? Tom's father barked. If you love another man, why torment everyone? If you're ready to leave your husband and children for your lover, just pack your bags and go. Don't ruin everyone's life. Tom will get over it, and maybe he'll be better off. He's not an old man or unattractive, and the girls will be fine with him. Rachel could barely comprehend what she was hearing. What are you talking about? There won't be any divorce. That's your opinion, Tom's father replied. I know my son. You don't seem to know him at all. I just need to explain things to him, and he'll realize he's wrong. If he calls, I'll tell him that. Rachel ended the call, her mind racing. She dialed David's number, and to her surprise, a woman answered. I'm here, the woman said coldly. Who are you looking for? I'm looking for David, Rachel replied, trying to keep her composure. We work together. Oh, I know who you are, the woman replied with a sneer. Let me tell you something, honey. I kicked him out. Don't call him. He doesn't even have a phone anymore. Rachel was taken aback. What do you mean? Where's David? You don't know? The woman shot back. I've moved cities twice because of him, and now I'm not leaving my new house. As for David, I kicked him out. Maybe he's at your place. He doesn't know where I live. Why would he be at my place? Rachel asked, confused. He knows everything about you, including your address. He works with you, and you weren't the only one involved with him. He had plans. He intended to meet up with all of you while I was on vacation. Except I wasn't going anywhere. Rachel felt the weight of the situation pressing on her. She tried to think clearly. Tom and the girls were going to a ski resort out of town. He knew some of the staff there. Her voice faltered. One of them, Mark, he's a former classmate of his. Tom called him, explained the situation, and asked if he could accommodate him and the girls for the winter vacation. Mark had responded quickly. Anything for you, Tom? A house for 3 people? That's a dream come true. I have a company waiver and 3 cabins available. I'll reserve one for you. That's great, Tom had said. But I have one request. If someone calls, don't confirm that I'm with my daughters on this vacation, all right? I'll reserve the cabin for you when you arrive, Mark said on the phone. Okay, thanks. We're about an hour and a half away, but I can't drive too fast. The roads are slippery. Understood. I'll set the table in the cabin at the entrance. Just tell them you're here to see Mark, and they'll direct you. An hour and a half later, they reached the gates of the ski lodge. They told the gatekeeper they were there to meet Mark, who directed them to the parking area. Tom parked the car in a sheltered lot near the lodge, grabbed their belongings, and led his daughters into the house. Mark was already waiting at the table. Hurry up, Everything on the table is getting cold, he called. Always in a rush, Tom muttered, but let the girls freshen up first. Let them wash their hands and explore a bit. Alice and Sophia, already in their tracksuits, took their things upstairs. They found their rooms to be satisfactory and settled in. Tom couldn't help but notice how much his daughters had grown. Mark turned to Tom. "Where's Judy? Why hasn't she come?" Tom paused. "That's a separate story. I'll tell you later." Mark raised his glass. "Let's toast to our meeting." They toasted, reminiscing about old times. The conversation was often interrupted by questions from Tom's daughters. Eventually, Sophia asked about other activities at the ski lodge. "There's a dance party in the hall right now," Mark said. "We didn't bring anything to dance in," Alice replied. "No dress code." Mark reassured them. "You can come as you are. Can we go, too?" Sophia asked eagerly. "Of course," Mark said, making a quick call. A few minutes later, one of the staff arrived to escort Alice and Sophia to the party. As soon as the girls left, Mark turned to Tom. "So, what's going on with your wife?" "I decided to get a divorce," Tom replied. "Why?" Mark asked, surprised. Tom sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Remember when I used to date her? There were rumors back then about her seeing someone else. And now, there's a guy who shows up out of town, becomes the commercial director at her workplace, and they start this emotional affair." Mark nodded. "Sounds complicated. But did she cheat on you?" "No," Tom said, shaking his head. "They decided that for this long weekend, we shouldn't vacation together, supposedly to strengthen our marriage as we get older." Tom sounded bitter. "I've always been skeptical of sociologists. They're people who don't understand society, doing research and imposing supposed laws that are often just made up. That's exactly what this feels like." Mark agreed. "It sounds like they just made it up for you." Tom took a deep breath. "When I talked to her, I realized I couldn't keep going. I couldn't live like this anymore. So, I decided on a divorce." Mark poured a drink. "What's next?" "I need to figure that out. I've arranged for a group of lawyers to meet me here tomorrow. There's an office downtown. I'll get their help," Tom said, his voice steady but tinged with exhaustion. "Good call. And you'll be all right, Tom," Mark said, clapping him on the back. "Don't let this get to you too much." Around 11 p.m., Alice and Sophia returned from the dance. The ski center staff had been attentive, escorting the girls back to the lodge. Tom prepared a late supper for them, and they shared the meal together before heading to their rooms. Afterward, Tom sat on his bed, struggling to hold back tears. It had been an incredibly challenging day, and he couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. He turned on his tape recorder and listened to the recording, reaffirming that his decision was the right one, given the circumstances. Judy had never waited for him, and he had no idea where she had gone with their daughters. But one thing was clear. He had kept his promises to his children, and that's why they were here, at the ski lodge as planned. Tom powered on his computer, determined to find something that might give him insight into where Judy had gone. But after an extensive search, he found nothing. He couldn't locate any information on ski lodges in the area. The next morning, Tom woke to a knock on his door. "Come in," he called out. His daughters burst into the room, full of energy and excitement. "Daddy, wake up!" Alice exclaimed, jumping on the bed. "It's morning." Sophia followed, tugging on her dad's arm. "It's going to be a great day, right?" The next morning, Alice and Gwen were full of energy. "Let's have breakfast and go skiing on the hill," Alice said excitedly. "Then we can go ice skating." "There's an ice skating rink here?" Gwen asked. "Yes, there is," Alice replied, nodding enthusiastically. "Great. Where do we have breakfast?" Hank asked. "Let's go to the cafe. Wash up, and I'll be ready in 5 minutes," Alice said, and they headed to the cafe for breakfast. After they changed into their skiing attire, they rented skis and took the lift up the mountain. The day was spent skiing until lunchtime. In the afternoon, they returned to the cafe to change. As they were about to head out, they ran into Mark and his wife. "Looks like your company arrived," Mark said to Hank. "The divorce specialist is here, too. Meet me in my office later. I have everything you need, computer, printer, all that. I'll take your girls to the ice rink tonight if you don't mind. They can go dancing again. We'll join them, dance, and then return to the cabin. And don't forget, tomorrow is New Year's Eve. We need to prepare for the festivities." "Sounds good," Hank replied, feeling a little more at ease with the support. After lunch, Hank and Mark went to Mark's office. A lawyer soon arrived to discuss the situation. Maria, the lawyer, explained the legal landscape to Hank, who was unfamiliar with the process. She advised him to be cautious about making any rash decisions regarding their apartment. Keep in mind, your girls will grow up and eventually need their own space. If you move in with them now, there could be complications down the line, new partners, new lives. It's something to think about, Maria explained. I can't imagine living in the same apartment as Judy, Hank replied, shaking his head. Try to envision it, Maria said, offering a more constructive perspective. Maybe propose a petition first. And when you're ready, explain to your wife that you'll be filing for divorce. We'll handle the paperwork. The courts are on holiday for the weekend, but we'll get it done. You can reach out to me if you need anything, or I can represent you in court. I like that idea. Having a lawyer on my side feels like a good next step, Hank said. That evening, Hank and his daughters celebrated New Year's Eve at the lodge with Mark, his wife, her sister, and a group of lawyers. Other vacationers joined in, making for a lively and fun-filled night of music, dancing, and celebration. As the night wore on, Hank returned to his cabin with his daughters, who were exhausted and ready for sleep. After the main festivities ended, Mark, his wife, and the others gathered around the fireplace in Hank's cabin. The conversations continued late into the night before everyone retired to their rooms. Over the following days, Hank and his daughters continued enjoying the vacation, skiing, ice skating, and dancing in the evenings. Mark checked in on Hank, asking, "How are you holding up?" Hank, reflecting on the emotional toll of the past few days, replied, "It's been tough. Apart from the daytime fun, there were nights when I shed a lot of tears. But today, I feel more prepared for what's ahead than ever." The day arrived for Hank and his daughters to return home. They packed up their things and stopped by the mall for groceries before heading back to their apartment. As darkness fell, the girls immediately set to work rearranging their rooms, with Gwen moving her things into Alice's room. Judy entered the house and immediately asked, "What are you two doing?" "We're turning Gwen's room into Dad's room. We're going to share one room," Alice explained. Judy raised an eyebrow, clearly unhappy. "Why? This isn't your decision." Gwen, looking uncomfortable, responded, "That's what Dad said." Judy's face darkened. "I won't tolerate any of your boyfriends in the house. You can hang out anywhere, but no funny business here. And just so you know, I'm filing for divorce." With the room changes complete, the girls got ready for school. Hank started preparing dinner and breakfast for the next morning. Judy walked in, trying to start a conversation, but Hank remained unresponsive, deliberately ignoring her. Later, Judy entered the girls' room, asking if they wanted to talk to her. But Alice and Gwen were firm. "We haven't missed you," they said. Hank instructed the girls to stay out of his way for the rest of the week, continuing to live separately from Judy. He locked the doors to the rooms he and the girls occupied, determined to create space between them. Hank cooked for himself and his daughters, while Judy seemed increasingly alienated, making no effort to repair their relationship. On Friday evening, a young woman delivered a registered letter to Judy. It was a summons with a statement of claim attached. Judy read it carefully, feeling a wave of dread wash over her. The legal process had officially begun. Judy rushed into the kitchen, tears streaming down her face. "Hank, please. Why do you want a divorce? We can work this out. We've been through so much together. Don't throw everything away." Her voice was pleading, desperate for him to reconsider. Hank remained calm, his expression unchanged. "Judy, you need to consult a lawyer and figure this out. It's not something I can fix with a conversation," he said, his tone firm. He wasn't ready to engage with her emotions any longer. Judy, in a state of panic, mentioned Richard's disappearance, hoping it might lead Hank to reconsider his stance. "If you're really concerned about Richard, why not try reaching out to him? Maybe he can give you some clarity," Hank suggested, not allowing her plea to affect him. Judy, feeling more alone than ever, insisted that she had no one else but Hank. "I have no one but you, Hank. Please. I need you. I love you and the girls." Hank's voice was low but firm as he replied, "What does my love have to do with it anymore? I loved you, Judy. That was before I found out about the affair. You never even told me about Richard. How can I love someone who deceived me like that? He shook his head in disbelief. I thought it was foolish to love you, and now I know it was. Judy stood there, stunned by his words, but she couldn't stop herself from pleading. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. I didn't plan this. I didn't want it to go this far. Hank crossed his arms, coldly asking, So, what was your plan, Judy? What did you want to do with Richard over the weekend? How were you going to spend it? Or was this just another one of your sociological theories? Your friend, Richard, disappearing again. How does that fit into your great plans? Hank finished cleaning up after dinner, washing the dishes while Judy stood silently, still crying. Alice walked into the kitchen, offering to help, but Hank gently refused. No, sweetheart, go upstairs and tidy your room. I'll take care of the dishes and the ironing, he said, trying to keep things as normal as possible for the girls. Alice and Gwen had already eaten and retreated to their rooms without a word to Judy. Judy, feeling completely ignored, became more emotional, retreating to her room, alone in her sadness. Hank continued with his chores, the cold silence hanging between them. After finishing the dishes, Hank went to his room, but before bed, he noticed a pile of laundry waiting to be ironed. As he prepared to do it, he walked past the kitchen again and saw Judy sitting in the dark. When Judy saw him, she spoke quietly, almost as if confessing. Hank, none of this was planned. It just happened. I was seeing Richard back in university, and then he suddenly disappeared. I wasn't pursued or pressured into it. Hardly anyone knew we were dating, and no one knew he broke up with me. Then he came back, and we started working together. One day, he asked me to have lunch, and it was just lunch at first, nothing more. But then, something changed. He made it clear that everything had to be secret. No one could know, especially our spouses. It was supposed to be a fling, nothing serious. I didn't think it would go this far. Hank stared at her, his disbelief evident. So, you made up this whole story about the weekend? You just didn't think it would go this far? Judy, you've lied to me. Judy was desperate, trying to explain herself. I didn't realize it would go on like this. I thought it was just a temporary separation. He proposed that we have this one weekend together, just to see if it could work. But Hank, he was just using me. Can't you see that? You should have seen the signs. Hank's voice was steady but angry. It's not just about what you did, Judy. It's about everything. It's about trust. You've shattered it. You've given up on us. Judy, now visibly upset, shook her head. It's not just about you, Hank. It's been a long time since you've complimented me, since you've noticed me. My looks, my clothes, my hair. But that's not an excuse. Don't put all of this on me, just because I haven't told you every day how great you look. You're saying you'd have an affair with anyone who gives you compliments? Hank took a deep breath, trying to keep his emotions under control. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you chose to betray me, and you were willing to lie about it. That's the problem. The next few days were filled with preparations. Hank had a meeting with child welfare officials, as advised by his lawyer, Maria. The officials' opinions would play a significant role in court, especially considering the girls' views. Hank had a lot to manage in a short amount of time. At night, when he was alone, he found it hard to sleep. His mind was consumed by the themes of love and betrayal, and his heart was heavy with the pain of Judy's actions. During a conversation, Judy tried to convince Hank to stay married for the sake of the children. For their sake, Hank, we should stay together. The girls need us to be a family, she pleaded. Hank's response was calm but resolute. I believe our children need to know that their parents love them unconditionally. But love is more than just staying together for their sake. They need to see what true love looks like. I can't teach them that if we continue living a lie. The weight of the situation was heavy on Hank's shoulders, but he knew deep down that their marriage was beyond repair. The damage had been done, and the only thing left was to move forward, no matter how painful the journey. Hank's voice was steady as he spoke to Judy. The girls are old enough to form their own opinions. They've heard everything, and they've seen it all. I haven't spoken ill of you to them. They've made their judgments based on what they overheard when you criticized me over our temporary separation for that weekend. They've absorbed more than you think, and they're not naive. Judy's eyes welled up with tears. Do they hate me? She asked, her voice shaking. Hank sighed deeply. For someone with a degree in sociology, you should know this by now. Yes, they know you were unfaithful. And yes, they're angry with you. You can try to fix things, but be prepared. The road won't be easy. Adolescence is a transition where children are changing, evolving, and learning to think for themselves. They're in that phase now, and they're not likely to forget what they've learned. The room fell silent. Judy seemed to take in Hank's words. She had hoped for reconciliation, but it was clear things had already moved far beyond repair. "I never meant for this to happen," she whispered almost to herself. The weeks leading up to the court hearing were filled with desperation from Judy. She tried to reconcile, but Hank remained unmoved. Eventually, they faced each other in court for the preliminary session. The judge gave them some time to attempt a reconciliation, but when that period expired, Hank proposed that Judy sign a child custody agreement. The girls would live with him, and Judy would have visitation rights. Judy refused to sign the agreement, and Hank warned her, "If you don't sign, I'll have to take this to court. The judge will hear the girl's side, and it's unlikely the decision will be in your favor." Judy was defiant. "You can't be so sure. Court decisions can be appealed." Hank didn't flinch. "Well, good luck with that." Judy's tone softened, a note of regret slipping into her voice. "Hank, I know I've been foolish. I understand now what I did was wrong. Please understand that I love you, and I'll never have Richard in my life again." Hank responded, his voice cool but final. "You've decided to replace him with someone else. That's your choice. Don't blame me for it." The court proceedings continued. Judy, no longer represented by a lawyer, answered the judge's questions with simple, brief responses. She understood that the marriage was over. She relinquished her share of the apartment in favor of the daughters, and the judge took note that she had already removed her personal belongings. Judy's remaining possessions would be gone within a week. After a brief recess, Judy agreed to sign a child support agreement, pledging to provide financial support for the girls. Hank suggested that she open a separate account for each daughter, ensuring the money would be there when they came of age. The judge acknowledged the child support issue, but clarified that alimony and the apartment division would not be addressed in this session. After all matters were discussed, the judge recessed to make a decision. The divorce was finalized. After the hearing, Hank and Judy left the courthouse. The girls, excused from the courtroom, were sitting on a bench near a bus stop, eating ice cream despite the cold weather. Hank approached them, puzzled. "Girls, what are you doing out here? It's freezing." Alice and Gwen shrugged nonchalantly. "We brought the ice cream home and thought it would be okay to eat it now. It's good for sore throats." Hank couldn't help but laugh. Only you two would have ice cream in winter. Later, when Hank asked why they had chosen 19 as the age for accessing the money from their accounts, they simply replied, "That's what we decided." It was clear that, despite the turmoil, the girls had developed their own sense of responsibility and maturity. Judy honored her commitment to allow Hank to maintain full custody of the children. She left the apartment, moving in with her parents to care for her ailing mother. Hank agreed to allow her to visit the girls once a week, though Alice and Gwen were hesitant about these visits. On these occasions, Judy spent time with her daughters at their new home, but the relationship was strained, and the distance between them was undeniable. Meanwhile, Hank focused on his life with Alice and Gwen. They remained his priority, and he did his best to provide them with the stability and love they needed. During a family vacation at a ski resort, Hank started to develop a relationship with Kat Ada, the sister of Mark's wife. Kat Ada didn't have children of her own, but she got along well with Alice and Gwen. Though there was some initial jealousy from the girls, Hank took things slow. He wasn't in a rush to commit, as his primary focus remained on his daughters. Judy had a difficult year. Her parents passed away one after another, and Hank helped her with the funerals. Though they shared a moment of grief, it didn't mend their fractured relationship. For a long time, Judy lived independently and began dating again. She found a lonely widower from a neighboring house, and although Richard never reappeared in town, his absence remained a void in her life. Through all the ups and downs, Hank remained committed to his daughters, ensuring they had the love and guidance they needed. The past was behind him, and he found peace in knowing he had done everything he could for Alice and Gwen. The journey ahead wasn't easy, but with them by his side, he knew he could handle whatever came his way.